Hey, everybody. So, the last episode, we talked about intention, and I made a comment at the very end about how your audience, how they're watching, even though they may not be commenting or liking, or maybe even reaching out to you at this point yet. This episode, we're going to get into that a little bit deeper. So, your audience is indeed watching. How many times have you, I'll use myself, I like to use my own experiences for this. Go to a gas station, go to a department store, run into either an old coworker, somebody else that's in the same industry. Maybe it's a realtor, it's a lender. It could be in that arena, right? People that I knew from when my kids were going to school, and they'll say something about my podcast. I'm like, I'm thinking to myself, why are you watching it? Or how did you even hear about it? And I'm glad you did, but how? And then I'll make a comment. I actually had somebody actually reference the book Unstoppable by Tim Grover, and they actually went out and bought the book. I kid you not, because I had mentioned it and talked about it for just a little bit, and they liked the idea. This was somebody that was training Kobe and Jordan, and I'm like, wow, this is super cool. And I'm thinking to myself, if it meant enough to you that you actually went out and bought the book, then why didn't you leave a comment, or why didn't you DM me something? Because to me, that's feedback. I love feedback. I don't always love feedback. That was a lie. I'm sorry, guys. I lied to you just a second. Okay. I like a lot of feedback. Not always do I want my feedback, but your audience is watching is the key, even when they're silent. If you think no one's paying attention, you're wrong. Most people don't even engage, but it's not because they don't care. They simply just don't engage. You know, my wife, I'll sit there and watch my wife on the couch and we're watching TV or something like that. All of a sudden I'll hear her start laughing hysterically with a very, very pretty laugh. I think it's gorgeous. Please don't hurt me. But she's just laughing. And then she'll scroll and I'll see her scroll and she'll laugh again. She's just coming down from her day, right? And I'm sitting there going, I ask her, I'm like, do you like these or comment sometimes? Because I'm asking because of the podcast. I'm asking because of the social media. She's like, not usually. I'm sitting there going, man, why this kind of pisses me off a little bit. Not because she's not, but I would love every person that's watching this right now to give me a like or a heart, or, hey, Tim, thanks so much. That meant a lot to me. Or, hey, have you ever thought about doing a podcast about this topic or this topic? I would love that. I mean, I would probably do a fat man cartwheel and hopefully don't fall over. They're not always not engaged just because they're not commenting or liking. That's the key to this, okay? If you haven't watched this before, welcome. This is Elevate With Enbody. I'm your host, Tim Enbody. And today we're going to go down a little walk and we're going to talk about something that messes with tons of people's minds. I know it does mine. Silence kills. No one likes it. No comments, no DMs, and the stories. We tell our stories, we tell what happens in our day, and we get nothing in return. We think. So segment 1, the biggest misread thing in your content. Here's the mistake that I make, and I bet you do as well. I'm betting that you do. Most people make the assumption. They think engagement equals attention. I know I do all the time. It doesn't. Trust me. If you guys listen to Gary Vaynerchuk, he will talk about this to nauseum. What's funny is I listen to him, I read it, and then I come back and I start whining to Chaz. Well, Chaz, how many likes do we have, Chaz? None. Or how many comments? 2, and you were one of them. And you probably held your son captive and said, "Give me a comment or give me a like." But that doesn't mean it's not out there. So engagement is oftentimes a reaction. Attention is tied more to the behavior, and behavior shows up oftentimes silently. People listen, they watch, they remember, but long before they ever raise their hand and have a need, they may not actually give you the filler. They might not come on here and give you that reward of a like or a comment. Segment 2, the truth about low engagement. I'm gonna tell you guys this stuff, and then I'm gonna hold myself accountable to it every time. So let me just say it to be clear. Some of the most successful people that I know or I follow almost never even get comments. I'm talking about big multi-millionaire people that I'm watching on social. They'll have, let's say they have a post that it could have 5, 6 digits as far as views, but with only a dozen comments. That ratio doesn't make sense sometimes, but yet their books are bestsellers. They're multi-millionaires. I mean, things are going well for them, right? But they've understood this a long time ago. It's the reach. They don't need to be seen. And they learned a long time ago that gathering that information was only part of the homework, right? I got to put it out there. People are going to watch. I need to make sure it gets put in front of the right people. I need to understand the right algorithm. And I need to understand that where I'm posting is where people are at. But if I have those things in check, then the outreach happens. It's the long game. How you respond, how consistent you are, and whether you crack when nobody claps. Silence isn't rejection. It can at times be simply an evaluation of what you're doing, though. Segment 3, why creators quit way too early. Now, keep this in mind. I'm not talking about somebody famous. I'm not talking about Jake Paul or any of that stuff. I'm talking about people like me and you. People like you and I that run our day business and we're sharing something on Instagram or Facebook or TikTok or a podcast, or maybe we've even written an ebook. We're doing something, but have you ever thought about, it's almost like the one-hit wonder. Why did somebody have such an amazing song and then you kind of never hear from them again? Or at least whatever else they wrote never showed up in the charts. Did somebody else write it for them? Who knows? Did somebody else, did you trip and fall across something? I mean, there's a local little restaurant in Cascade where I live, and this kid got like 30,000 views in a day on some goofy work thing that he did at a restaurant. I'm like, I'm literally kicking, screaming, fighting, clawing, punching to get 50,000 views in 90 days. And this kid got 30,000 views in an afternoon. I'm like, ugh. But his was creative. His was funny. Mine's about business. It's not always they don't always coincide, but it doesn't mean that I don't have people listening and paying attention, right? I just told you the story about the book. This is where I believe most people self-sabotage themselves. They post, they wait, they check metrics. When nothing happens fast, they change direction. A new message, a new tone. Maybe it's a new strategy. What they don't realize is this: they trained their audience to expect nothing consistent. Trust doesn't just appear or disappear overnight. It never forms in the first place. Right? Does that make sense? So a lot of times when we're doing our things and we're kind of chucking through our day and we're like, all right, I gotta, oh, that's right. Let me check my calendar. I gotta post this afternoon. Chaz, let's do a post about the market. Oh, and Chaz's like, okay, I mean, sure. Give me the post. I'll hurry it up a little bit and I'll post it for you. Or do you want, I want to hear. It's just random. We talked about that in the previous episode, right? If you're just randomly putting things out there, you can't control. And if you don't have controls over what you're trying to be, and if you're trying to be intentional, you're going to run into problems. So here's the part that people don't like to hear. If you quit or change direction, every time your engagement dips, you're not listening to your audience. You're negotiating with your insecurities. Your audience needs repetition because they're not always online the moment you did a post, right? So let's say I post this, and let's say Chaz is my target audience, but he's at work today, and then he's getting his car fixed tomorrow, and he's going on a date with his wife on Thursday, and then maybe Thursday night he goes on social media. Well, I posted Monday and Tuesday, but maybe that didn't show up in his thread. Am I going to get upset because I didn't get a response from somebody like Chaz that might be my target audience? I need to have that repetition. I don't necessarily need to reinvent myself. Now, we talked about this. I can say this now, like 20, 30 episodes ago about being your authentic self. As long as you're being your authentic self, this comment applies. You don't need to reinvent your authentic self, because if you have to be fake, that is not going to follow through very long either, right? We're not actors. We're not playing a scene. We're trying to be who we really are, because that's what your people want. Segment 5, what your audience is really actually asking. Every post makes answers sometimes silent, questions sometimes obvious. Can I trust this person? Not with my money, with my intention. Consistency answers that question. Clarity answers that question. Integrity answers that question. Being viral does not answer any of those questions. Just because you have 50,000 viewers doesn't mean that I'm going to trust you with my billfold or my family, right? Followers matter most. The quiet ones are often the decision makers. They're sitting back and they're paying attention to you, and you. They don't comment because they're consuming data. They're doing their research. They're taking notes. They're taking those notes between you and this lender, this realtor, maybe this inspector, maybe this car detailer. They don't comment because they don't need that validation. They don't need to put a comment on there and go, here's my brilliant thoughts. And then you come back and hit like and maybe put a comment on there as well. They're not looking for daylight. They're not looking for spotlight. They're doing their research. Now, somebody, usually it's going to be a coworker, a friend, maybe somebody in the same industry. You might get the likes, the comments, and the keep it ups from those folks. The occasional client, for sure. But for the most part, your fans, if you have them, they're the quiet ones, but they're the ones that are working hardest for you. And they're the ones that are potentially on the verge of buying again. They don't need the validation. They don't engage because they're not bored. They're busy, right? I just said what Chaz was doing this week. He's a busy guy. And when they move and they're decisive. That's why showing up matters when nothing really else does, because it seems to be happening over and over again, because something always is, right? Something's always happening with all of us. So be consistent with intention and transparent, and realize that a lot of your audience is not commenting. Okay. You don't build trust when people cheer. That might give you some momentum. That might give you a boost in the butt a little bit. You build trust when people watch you and they show up anyway. If you ever had to actually sit down and think about this, about quitting, right? Because it felt like no one was listening. I think this episode's for you and me. I say you and me because I have this fear all the time. Am I burning daylight? Should I be doing something else? It's often. I'm often thinking that when I'm sitting down taking my notes and putting a podcast together. I'm like, who's this for? It's for you. It's for maybe just one person. So I'm pointing right at you right now, right? In the next episode, we're going to talk about the intention, right? And how sometimes you want to quit, but also about the part that nobody really ever prepares you for: the waiting, the patience, the stretch where nothing changes until everything does. Until next time, keep elevating your business and your brand.